specifically that I developed over the last 30 years that is incredibly effective. It sounds very difficult to master, and it really isn't. You got, you know, it's gonna sound very complicated when I try to go through it, but you know, if you pay attention, and there's also a supporting video on YouTube under John Paduano, Snap Jigging, that I did for the fishermen. So if you miss anything here, you could go on YouTube and Google my name, Snap Jigging the Fisherman, and it goes into some more depth and with a few supporting pictures and videos that explain things a bit better. I constantly get positive messages from people that try to, you know, to do this. If you stood at my booth today, I probably heard 30 people, and it's all the same thing. You know, I don't want to fish any other way. It really is that enjoyable. I got Dave, right? Yeah, Dave texted me a couple weeks ago, and you know, sent me a nice video about how that's all they want to do. They've been doing it after they watched the video and the seminar online, and they're having the time of their life, better than any other kind of fishing. And they're, how old, if you don't mind? 80?
83 and 81.
83 and 81. All right? So, listen, I'm 60. I doubt I can pick it up now. I can't remember anything. So I got to give you kudos for that. So, you know, anybody can do it. It's just a matter of just getting the basics down. It's a lot of feel, you know, is what it is. It's a lot of feel. And, you know, most of you, I'm sure, have your favorite areas to fish. And I would suggest trying to do that. Develop this technique in areas that you're familiar with, you know, because for you to go out there and try snap jigging all day, the first day, forget about it. You know, you're going to come back and you're going to be like, screw that, I ain't doing this. But if you're going out, like say you're going out Wantor, and you know that there's this little point that you do pretty good, try snap jigging there. Bang, you're going to get fish. So, and the more you do it, the more you're going to catch, and the more you're going to do it until it's you know, it is my favorite way of fishing. I don't want to fish any other way. Almost everybody I talk to, it's the same thing. It's an incredibly enjoyable fight. I mean, the amount of fish and the size of the fish that we catch on tackle. This is the rod and reel. This is the tackle right here. All right. Any week in the end, from middle of June through August, we're catching on my boat. If I went out 7 days, I'm getting 30 fish over 40 pounds. Yes, I'm not talking on this outfit. I've landed tarpon over 200 pounds on this outfit. All right. It's going to come off to you as like, you know, very difficult to believe. But let me just explain something. When I first started fishing and started surf fishing, that's where I got my start, pretty much surf fishing. We'd go fishing from Shinnecock, Mauritius, Smith Point, Montauk, and we'd use 15-pound Andy. Now, I don't know, those around that have been fishing long enough to know that if you had 15-pound Andy, and after a few days outside, it probably broke at 15 pounds, all right? This 10-pound braid, they call it, breaks at over 20. So as long as you make a decent knot, this 10-pound braid is stronger than the line we used to use fishing inlets, Montauk Point, the beaches for striped bass. My boat is in Westlake Marina, and the guy who owns it, Chris, and he owns it with his wife, or I mean his sister, and at least used to, they just sold it, but he couldn't believe charters were coming and telling him the size of the fish we're catching on the tackle. And he came and he met me at the boat. He's like, I got to see this. So he grabs a rod and he had a scale. And he took a, I was like, all right, wait, I just picked up one of my rods, I had a new line on. Put it on a scale, 8 pounds of drag. All right, that's a lot of drag. I mean, I don't know if any of you ever checked your drag on your rods with a scale. But I'll bet you, anybody that surf fishes, I guarantee you your drag is set way less than 5 pounds. You know, and here I am using 8. And that was on new line. On my old rods, and I knew they were old, I'd back off a little, and I went down to about 6.5. So, you beat a fish really quick. You know, to call it ultralight fishing is not, it really isn't, because you're using, you know, we get 40-pound fishing sometimes in 4 or 5 minutes. You know, hardly ever much longer than that. And it's a more of an intimate, personal fight. You learn how to fight a fish better with the heavier tackle. You know when to let him do his thing and when to put the pressure on. and it becomes a hell of a lot more fun than your standard things, you know. I get a lot of people on my boat and they'll see, and I'm not putting them down, but they'll see like November Rain or, you know, Venture, and they're trolling the umbrella rigs, and the guys in that back parachuting like this all day, and they're like, never again. He goes, after going with you, we'll never go on a boat like that again. It's just, you know, because everybody's dying to be the first one to grab the rod, nobody's dying to be the second, you know. It's just so much more fun doing it this way. And like I said, they fill a niche. There's people that just want to go out, drink, and reel in a few fish. It's perfectly fine. But if you want to go out and have the time of your life, try this. Now this just doesn't work here. It shines, especially on the surf. But down in Florida, like in Costa Rica, we had to go to a wedding out in Seattle. Me and my girlfriend go down to the beach in Seattle, catch the salmon from the beach. You know, the other side of the sound from Seattle, but basically Seattle. You know, it's a technique that'll work wherever other fish are eating bait fish, shrimp, or something that, you know, and what it does is it mimics the movement of bait fish and how they would react if a predator fish was on them. And secondly, and most important, which most people don't understand and realize, is the lateral line. The fish's brain, a big part of that fish's brain, more so than sight and everything else, is dedicated to the lateral line. That lateral line, that fish can live without his sight, that fish can't live without his lateral line. That lateral line tells him everything. He can be pitch black, he knows in a school where everybody is. He knows where rocks are, he knows which way the current's going, off in the lateral line. You know, if the lateral line wasn't that important, you know, half his brain wouldn't be dedicated to it. All right, so, you know, in the daytime, yeah, the fish has the visual aspect, but this also appeals to the lateral line. So, you know, the fish comes up, he sees the bait fish, that bait fish takes off like he should, but he also feels that bow wave, he feels that pressure on the lateral line, and between the two of them, he just can't help himself. You know, there's two options for him. Either he runs up and he knows that bait fish can't go forever. You know, bait fish just, in schools of bait, they survive by outrunning their brothers and sisters. That's all it is. If there's pressure, somebody's after them, all they gotta do is be faster than their brothers and sisters, and they live for another, whatever, 5, 10, an hour. But, you know, as long as they're faster on that short spurt, somebody else is gonna get it. But you get one individual, and the most predator fish, they do this is their life. This is what they do. They know that, you know, that little bait fish is gonna spurt, but he can't go far. He doesn't have the stamina. So they know that after he spurts, he's gonna slow down, which is why every fish, and there's no 100% in fishing, but 100% of the time, you're gonna get a hit on the drop back. Because he follows it, and as soon as it drops back, like a bait fish should, when he gets tired, you're gonna hit it. Another reason this works really well, and especially in Montauk, we get it all the time. I mean, I hate the name drop. You can go to ask Matt. I had Matt Broderick from the Fisherman. He's at the booth. And we're out at Montauk 2 years ago, and we're crushing the fish. And I mean, we have 240s on, literally 40s or better, the whole time. And it comes to a point, we look up, and we're surrounded by boats trolling around us. We couldn't even get out to go make another drift because the boats are trolling around us like we're over the only fish in the whole area. We're getting fish for half a mile straight, but they're trolling around us because the fish don't want that crap. You know, this is a light bucktail. It's on light leader, 25. They're thrown either umbrella rigs, which big wire and whatever, and 130-pound leader. Same thing with the parachute and the wire line. There's or even bait. You know, you got 20-ounce sinker, you got 130 or 100-pound leader. They see all that. They feel all that. Their lateral line picks up all that. This, they really don't see it unless they, you know, they really want to, I guess, observe it, but it don't seem like it really bothers them. Plus, you know, it's a firm feeling with me that the bigger something is, the more a fish finds wrong with it. This, if you're a bass and this comes by, you're going to scoff it up. I don't care how small it is. I mean, the last seminar, you know, before I went there, I figured it out. It takes 64 million midges to make an ounce. A midge is like a mosquito, only a lot tinier. It's smaller than no seal. But a 5-pound trout will still come up and eat a midge. And I have no idea why it's worth the energy expended to get something that weighs 1/64th of an ounce. It's 1/64th million of an ounce. But it just goes to show you, something small that goes by they don't even have to think twice. You know, they'll just snap it up. It doesn't pose much danger to any fish. So that basically explains why it works really well. I mean, and even if it's not fish that they feed on, even if it's shrimp, the shrimp still do the same thing. They'll snap. You know, crabs will give a quick little step away. Pretty much anything that, you know, fleas will do the same thing. So, you know, that is why I feel it really works. I'm not a scientist. I'm not, you know, a marine biologist. Although it seems lately I know more than them. You know, where they're doing the regulations, I don't know. But anyway, any questions so far? No? All right, good. All right, I'm going to go into now the basics of doing the snap jigging. Again, it's gonna seem difficult, and I got the video. I would really strongly urge you to watch that if you have any problems doing it. It'll explain a lot. But what we're going to do is, you guys are from up here, so I'm going to basically talk about the fish up here. Obviously, if you're going for mahi or you're going for jacks or rooster fish, you're not going to worry about having your bucktail near the bottom. All right, but up here, the vast majority of fish that are feeding, and especially the big ones, are going to be down low. I mean, yeah, I know striped bass come up to the top, but it's an extremely small percentage of the time. Most of the time, they're going to be on the bottom. And honestly, if they're up top feeding, they're probably going to hit anything. You know, you don't have to do this. But it's when they're not, and when nobody else is getting them, that we're getting them. I mean, I hear it on my boat all the time. How come everybody's looking at us? And she'll tell you, it's because we're the only ones catching fish. It really is that good. You know, we can get fish when they're not hitting anything. I could go into instances, but I'm not going to bore you with that. So what I'm going to do is now tell you how to do it. All right? This is a typical scenario. I'll go through it, and then I'll try to refine it on different segments of it. What I'll do is I'll throw it out, and I'll let it sink. Now watch the line. Now the line has to be yellow or bright colored. It doesn't have to be yellow. I'm sorry. It has to be bright colored. White, yellow, chartreuse, hot pink, whatever. As long as you can see it. This is going to be mostly a sight fishing kind of thing, more so than the feel. So I'm going to drop it, and I'm going to cast out, and I'm going to slowly go down. I'm going to, have my line on here. If I'm in 40 feet, I'm going to have to wait probably 20-something seconds. And I'll go back up, I'll grab it with my finger, and I'll follow it down as it pulls, and I'll watch and watch until I see that line. All of a sudden, boom, I see that slack. Now what I'm going to do, I've got to get that out of there, is once that happens and I see that slack, I'm going to, and two things happen. I'll get my rod in the right position. Ideally, I want my rod right here. So if I'm dropping it and I see that slack right there, as I come down, I'm going to take a turn, which means that now I'm right here. And I'll drop and snap it up. Now, when we do it on the boat, you'll hear every time we do it with the line. You'll hear my rod swish, all right? When it comes up, the first 1 to 2 stops, you're going to have a long bow in the line in the water. The current's going to be moving it back and forth. You've got to take up a little slack. So I'm not going to reel up at first. I'm going to come back down, and usually it only takes a little bit. And you'll see that line slack, and then again, I'll take a turn if I have to get my rod here, and then snap it up. Now, I never realized this until my girlfriend told me that right before I do it, I drop the rod tip. Now, if you go on that video, you'll see in slow motion how I drop that rod tip, and as I drop it, and then I come up, the rod bends down as I come up, and it whips, everything comes together, and you can actually feel the thud in the rod as that takes off. All right? What's the most important in everything is how fast that bucktail goes from 0 to 60. All right? I don't care how far it goes. I don't care if it goes 5 feet, 3 feet. The important thing is you get that, you go from like this to poof, out, like a baitfish would. Like if you went down to the dock and you took your rod and you scared baitfish, they're not, they scatter, all right? That's what you want to imitate. So, you're going to drop it back down, and as soon as you see that line slack, it's either a fish or bottom, all right? And the same thing, snap up and done. Now, if all things are equal and there's no wind or anything, after every one, you probably have to take a half a cast. But you got wind, you got tide. The current on the bottom is always slower than on top, so you got that drag. Sometimes it's going to be the factors where the sense comes in. You know, you got to sense how much line. Sometimes you got to let line out. You know, I'll be coming in. Now the bucktail goes around and the wind's pushing me a little bit. I'll snap. I'll just take a little out, flip it over, go back down. You know, if the fish are there, usually it doesn't take long, and you got it. You really do. It works that well. So again, we're going to cast it out. You're going to watch it. You're going to watch that line. You're going to feed it down. You're going to watch that line. Boom. As soon as you see that slack, and it's harder for you to see it than me because I'm looking right down the line, and I can see as soon as that line gets slack. And the good thing about this is even if there's a southwest wind at like 30 miles an hour or whatever direction it comes from, and you got that bow in the line, you'll never feel that bucktail hit the bottom, but you can see it because you got that bow in the line. You'll see the difference, and it might be subtle, but you'll see the difference. The same with the hit, and you know you're doing good when you don't tangle. We'll fish the gut, the sluiceway, Montauk, Block Island, which is nothing but boulders, and we'll fish all day without getting tangled because you're right on it. You know, that bucktail comes down, it hits a rock. As long as you're quick and you snap it up, it doesn't have time to turn over and drag and snag. So, you know you're doing good like that.
John, how did you say you avoid getting snagged and miss that point?
Because when you're quick, if you're snagged and you're coming down, as soon as you feel it, you take off. The bucktail doesn't have time to turn over and drag. As long as that bucktail's upright, you really can't snag unless you land in a pile of Monel wire, you know, or somebody's vest. You know, then there's nothing you can do about that. But you know, as long as
if you're doing a fluke, let's say out of one of the reefs,
fluking is a little bit more difficult, but because you know, fluking is. I like to use a little light stuff and a little deeper with the fluke, and usually you're over sand. You know, sometimes you're around the rocks. The same thing. Like, you know, we do really well out of Mattatuck. You know, in close with the rocks where the draggers can't go.
Yeah.
You get some nice. Usually get some nice fluke in there. And it was the same thing. But you know, you're in among the rocks. And it's just quick. They'll go right on it. You know, the fluke will pop on it.
If you're fishing in a heavy current, do you find yourself pitching up current a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, if you're fishing heavy current, the bottom, like I said, the bottom is going to be a little bit slower. So after the first drift, all right, if you cast out, and this goes with any drift, I like to fish perpendicular to where the current's going. So if the current's going from left to right, I want to fish like this, right? If you fish downtide, you're not going to cover a lot of ground, and it's going to back up. If you fish uptide, you're bringing that bucktail right to the fish. Now the bass, you know, sea bass, a lot of them will hit. There are some fish like tarpon that if you bring a lure right to them like that, they're going to skedaddle. There's no way they're going to hit it. It's just a totally unnatural way for a bait fish to act. So, I mean, if it's going to make a tarpon act like that, I'm sure it's going to have adverse effect on a striped bass or weed fish or whatever we're targeting here. You know, cast sideways, you know, they're there, they're in the current, you cover a lot more ground sideways, and the fish come up to grab it, you know, and they want, especially the big fish, they got prime areas staked out. You know, you can talk to any skin diver, and they'll find the same areas holding the biggest fish. You know, they'll pick the finest spots out. So, you know, when you bring it sideways like that, and the fish comes up, and he's chasing it, he just wants to get up, grab it, get back to where he was, you know, and claim his piece of bottom. You know, he's not going to give it up. So, you know, it just seems to work a lot better. That's my girlfriend. She's like one of the best snap jiggers around.
When you're trying to stay not getting caught on the bottom, it's really important that you stay concentrated on what you're doing. There's no like body on the boat where you're talking and doing everything. You have to stay in contact always with your bucktail and what you're doing.
So
Because
that
that's how
you
you
feel
get. Yeah, you're concentrating. You're dropping back. You're feeling back. Your bottom come on.
Don't concentrate on catching the fish. Concentrate on doing this, and you will catch the fish.
And then what he was just saying about sideways fishing, I do a lot of fishing up current. I do well at times, really well. There's certain times for doing it, like he said. But when I'm not catching, he's catching and he's going this way. That always happens.
So you cast out straight up from the boat, or you cast
No,
out
cast,
a little bit?
like, you know, once after a drift, you'll see where your line, the lure has a tendency to go. So then you just, you know, do the opposite a little bit. Like if I do it, it ends up being on this angle. Like if I'm in the boat, and I'm casting sideways like here, and at the end of the drifts is there, I might cast up a little bit, and it keeps it more perpendicular, all right? And again, sometimes if the wind's pushing you, or sometimes you gotta reel up. You're going up a slope, you gotta take up. If you're going down, sometimes you gotta let the line out, which is a little bit, it becomes second nature. It sounds difficult. I mean, you got a lot of people that come in and they're like, no, this is way too much. But, I mean, these guys mastered it. Everybody, you can come to my booth and just one after another, love it. I mean, and it works everywhere. I go to in Costa Rica, I'm catching rooster fish. I'm catching, I went out with this guy. He's like begging me for my bucktails. I'm like, listen, I only came down at this. You're not getting anything. God forbid you break a rod tip down there, you're out of luck. But it's just, he couldn't believe the fish I was getting. Inshore. I'm like, let's go inshore. We were out catching giant mahi. I don't know if any of you ever caught 40-pound mahi on 10-pound test, but you don't want to catch too many of them. So I was like, let's go inshore, and I want to go around some of the rocks and see what. And I'm out there catching mahi. He's like, and everyone, do you want him? My mother loves fish. And I was like, yeah. Like, if I didn't want him, he's going to throw him back. I start coming inshore, catching all these fish. He's like, I'll take that if you don't want them. I'll take that if you don't want them. I was like, now I know which fish taste good. I started keeping some of them. But it just works on, it pretty much works on every grouper. I mean, just for an instance, I went down last year, I went down to the Keys with my friend Bruno. We finally get a good day to go out in the Gulf. So we're like, I got a couple of numbers, let's go try them out. I ended up not going to that wreck. I found a wreck by accident. We were running and I ran over a pile of fish. I'm like, what the hell was that? So I ran back. We had everything snap jigging, cobia, black, gad, Nassau grouper, red grouper, all the snappers, African pompano, all snap jigging. No bait. I don't know how many people went to the Keys, but their tackle shops consist of egg sinkers and hooks and bait. That's their tackle shop. They're getting better now. They might have poppers in it and some plugs and stuff like that, but not much. And it's like, we go down there, I go down for 2 weeks, never buy bait. I go up anywhere I go, I got a little pouch and I got an assortment of jigs. That's it. And I'll crush fish. It's just.
Tell me a story about the man that just put stuff to me that mentioned under the bridge.
The what?
The guy under the bridge and you put all the fish.
The one that where I caught the permit?
Yeah, well, the guy that was like there and then you left and then you came back the next day looking for you.
Oh, the guy, we were down there and we were mostly down by Bahia Honda. So me and Bruno, this is the same trip. And I was like, let's go try up by Channel 5 and, Long Key to T-Table. I want to, see what's happening up there. Because that's my old stomping grounds, Bahia Honda's nice and everything, but that's where I'm comfortable. So we go to Long Key, we pull up, we hook like 5 tarpon in a row, right? Go out, land them, and we take off. I was like, I want to see what's up further. And there was like 12 boats there. So the next day we're going back, and we pull up, and we catch like one each. I'm like, all right, let's go back up. I want to go further. I want to go all the way up, to T-Table. We didn't make it the day before. As we're going, this guy is like frantically waving, like, his wife's in labor or something. I was like, we better check it out. So we go over there. He's like, dude, I'm sorry for waving at you like that. He goes, I gotta know what you guys are doing. He goes, I'm here yesterday, 12 boats, nobody catches anything. You guys show up, and it's 5 tarpon in a row, and then you take off. He goes, and I'm like, I told my wife, I should have waved. She's like, they're not going to tell you nothing. So the next day we go there. He goes, nobody's doing nothing. All of a sudden, I finally see somebody fight, hook a fish, and he comes out and it's you guys again. He goes, I got to know what you're doing. So I told him everything. I gave him a couple bucktails, and he caught fish. But that's just how good it works. Anthony, my girlfriend's nephew, is at the booth. He'll tell you. The same bridge, Long Key Bridge. We went there. First day, we're crushing fish. There's a bunch of guides. Second day, a bunch of guides. Third day, we show up. We didn't even catch a fish yet. Half the guides took off. They're using mullet. They're using live crabs. And we'll outfish them all combined doing this. It's just, the fish, it just works that good. It works great.
Are you only using bucktails, or do you use?
All right, when you first start, and this is a great tip, because otherwise you're going to go broke. When I have charters on my boat, I don't start them off with bucktails. I can't afford that. I'll start them off with jig heads, and a straight tail plastic, all right? No paddle tails, no curly tails. There's just too much resistance. You're not gonna feel them hit the bottom. The straight tail will sink faster than a bucktail. A bucktail, each one of these hairs is water resistant, all right? Each one of these hairs is hollow. The bucktail is better once you get down there because the bucktail, baitfish are neutral buoyant. So you throw a bucktail down there and it imitates a baitfish more than anything else because it'll move with the current. Again, the lateral line, the fish, they sense which way the current's going, all right? That's why, I mean, you got to school the bunker, you scare the bunker on one side, that whole school moves at once because of the lateral line. They're all in tune, right? It moves as a unit because of that lateral line. So that's, you know, and they know, they sense which way the current is, and then this is in there, it goes behind a gully or a rock and a little swirl and it moves, you know, and it imitates the fish a lot. But this is a good second choice.
I've tried this technique with the Berkeley Club.
As long as it's straight. It's straight, and it's very important to put them on straight. I mean, you look down the line, that's on straight. If you put it on crooked, you're gonna snap it and it's gonna twist. And you're not gonna catch anything, right? So this will allow you to learn how to feel. And then like on my boat, once you can do a drift or two without snagging, and you want to use the bucktail, and they do because I'll throw it out there and catch a fish at will, you know, then I'll put a bucktail on. But it's until you can make some drifts with this without getting snagged, you're not going to get a bucktail unless you want to pay me up front, you know? I don't mind once you know it and you lose a few, that's fine, that's part of the territory. But I'm just not going to give it to you to start snagging on the bottom. But, you know, I just want to go through some of the tackle. All right, I explained how to do it. Any questions on how to do it? You snap, I reel before to get the rod into the right position, all right? Sometimes I'm a little off. Sometimes I make half a turn and I might not feel. So what I'll do is, even though I don't feel the bottom, I'll snap when I can't go further, and I won't reel. Now I can go back down and touch base again. And sometimes you just got to reel up and start all over again. You just lose everything. What's that? Yeah.
He's in the main room. In the main room. In the main room.
Oh, the gym. Yeah, it's in the gym. Table 44, if that matters. But any on
Freshwater works too.
oh yeah, freshwater. It's like
Lighter stuff all around.
yeah. Just remember when you do freshwater and you're using light stuff, like this is a good time of year to like if you don't fish, to take the freshwater with the little marabou jigs, go to your ponds after a warm day, and throw them, and you'll have a blast. I mean, it used to be some of my favorite time of fishing this time of year. But I take this outfit here up to the Salmon River. I'm sure you know about the steelhead up there. And I mean, some of you, I've told the story before. I walk down with just my rod and marabou jigs, and the locals, they used to hang out at Black Hole. I'd walk down, they're like, oh no, here comes a fucking feather man. Because I come down, I take five casts, catch 5 steelhead and leave, you know? And they're there with their center pins and, you know, like 25 objects at the end of their line, throwing it out and everything else. They don't catch nothing. But, you know, they see me do it year after year. You'd think they'd get smart and buy it. It doesn't cost much. The rod is 40, 50 bucks. The reel's 40, 50 bucks. The marabou's like 25 cents. I mean, you know, I don't get it. You would think they'd just like resign to the fact that it's better, but they don't. So it's more fish for me. But it works. But just when you're doing it, remember the size, the relative. You know, if you're throwing a marabou jig like that, you're not going to snap it and make it go 6 feet. Totally unnatural. You're going to scale down your snaps. You're going to still take off that snap real quick, but you're not going to put the power you would into a 5/8 or a 3/4. All right, you just got to scale it down to the side. Salt water I use. It depends on the water. I mean, it depends. Last year I'm with my buddy Saul. We're out there. We're crushing them on 3/4. Tide starts slacking, and everything is like 42, 43 inches and up. They're all big, right? So this is July 4th. We're crushing them, and the tide starts slacking. I went down to 3/8 as the tide gets slower. On the last drift, I'm like, you done with this? You want to get some food? Like, I'm eating sea bass, and he knows what I mean, sea bass and cod. We're not keeping the stripers. He's like, yeah. I said, all right, after this drift, I get a hit, it was 60 pounds on a 3/8 ounce bucktail in 55 feet of water. So with the lighter current, you can get down deeper. And, you know, It's also a lot easier to feed them, the light stuff you put in front of them, especially if they're on little anchovies, small sand eels, they can't help themselves. No barrel swivel. We got light line. This leader is way shorter than I normally fish. I just came back. What happened? I'll tell you what happened. I go down to Florida with my daughter and granddaughter and her husband, and I'm supposed to be good because I have a little tendency to go fishing too much. So I go down there and, you know, I'm doing good. I'm going fishing before everybody wakes up. I'm back in time for breakfast, you know. But they're going to Walt Disney, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go watch the SpaceX take off at Cape Canaveral. So I already had the itinerary. All right, I'm going to watch the engine, the rocket go up, and I'm going to run down to Sebastian, take a few casts. So I go there. I watch the rocket. Pretty cool to watch the rocket go up. I take the ride down to Sebastian. In 15 minutes, I got to fish 28 to 30 pound redfish on the beach. Just walking down with this rod, casting out. There's at least 50 people fishing there. I saw maybe 2 or 3 bluefish come up. You know, it's just that effective. But that's why the leader's a little shorter. The water was a little dirty, and I was able to lay into it. The only problem you got with the long leader, if you really got to lay into it, and the knot is here, sometimes you'll get a tip wrap and snap it off. But most of the time, I got, you know, as long as that knot, I don't know if you can see it, as long as you got the knot right there, you're good. And I'll keep it about that long with the knot in there. So it's about a 6 foot leader, all right? Which does 2 things, first off. First, it allows you, you'll get used to casting like this, you know, as long as, you know, you're not being crowded, you'll have no problem. But it allows the fish not to see the line as much. I'm sure they still will to a point. But it also, when you get it near the boat, you can handle it a lot quicker. You know, you're not trying to reach down. 10-pound test, you get that wrapped around your finger and that fish takes off, and it's going to cut you right to the bone. So, you know, it's nice having that extra leader just for that alone.
And you do the uni knot, right?
What?
The uni knot, the double uni?
Yeah, and I do double uni knot, you know, to combine the braid to the mono. I've tried the FJ knot. It seems to work, and all of a sudden you come back with the Chinese finger trap. So
How many rounds do you use? Either 10
on the double uni, the mono I'll go 4, and the braid side I'll go 8 or 9. All right, and that keeps the bulk of it down. That 4 is not going to break. You know, the 8 or 9 cinches down good.
Did you ever try like the Alberto?
No, it doubles it over now. You know, it's just, you know, if I'm going to do that now, I'm going to do an Albright. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a sloppy Albright. That's what it is. So I do really well with the double uni. I catch a lot of fish with the double uni. It seems to hold up through casting. And I don't use the barrel swivel because one problem you have if you use leaders with the barrel swivel and the snap, you put them on your rod and it's going to stay on your rod until you lose it, all right? And what happens is they'll start getting scuffed. You know, when it's nice and shiny, the fluorocarbon that goes in the water, nearly invisible. Once it starts getting scuffed and it starts getting UV damage, it becomes visible. And most people don't change them out. When I do it like this, I tie it to here. Every time I go to tie on a new bucktail, I pop it off and I'll tie a new bucktail. And what that does, it takes a few inches off. So after a while, I got to put a new leader on. So what that does is it forces me to constantly have a nice new shiny leader with a nice new knot up on top. You know, that barrel swivel, you got that knot up there, it's running, it's hitting into your guide or it's hitting into a rock, and it's getting weaker and weaker. The UV light is hitting it, getting weaker and weaker until finally that knot is going to be worth pretty much nothing. What's that? The braid has to be 10 pound. All right, I do seminars all the time, and I'll tell people all the time, and I do them because I know what I say. I was like, you need 10-pound braid, and it's got to be bright colored. And I'll have somebody call me up. I want to go on a charter. I can't get the hang of it. And they'll come on the charter and they'll have green 20. I'm like, I can't fish with this, and this is what I do. I was like, you know, you have to have the 10, and you have to have bright color. Another thing is, everybody thinks that you get braid and the stuff lasts forever. It don't, all right? once you get the braid and you start seeing them little fuzzies, each one of them fuzzies is water resistance, all right? And you can go, the good thing about braids, you can turn it around, all right? So once I start seeing that, I got extra spools, I'll just take this end and put it onto the backing of another reel it up. Now I got new line on that end right there. And it's like night and day. All of a sudden, it's like your jig is an ounce heavier, because now you can feel it hit bottom really well without all that little fuzzies and the resistance of it dropping. What's that? When I drop down, do I always want to feel bottom? Up here, yes. If I'm down in the Keys and I'm on that bridge, tarpon will come up a little bit. You know, they'll be on the bottom, they'll come up, they'll be around. So it's not really as important to be on the bottom there. But down here, if you want good fish, they're going to be on the bottom 99% of the time, unless they're chasing something up on top.
You know, it's funny, I got a story, like, I was doing some beaky to get bait, and a big tarpon, probably about 150 pounds, he ate the shrimp sabiki.
Oh yeah, I believe it. They'll hit small stuff. I got a picture on my Instagram, Fish of Light, FISHEMLITE, of a 200-pound tarpon I caught with a 3/8 ounce jig. You can see the jig in his corner, in the tip of his mouth. My favorite jig to use for tarpon is the 3/8. You know, they want the small stuff. Tarpon, Florida's great. I mean, I go down with my buddy, and you go in August, we go down there, you walk on the beach in the morning, and here they come. And there's like, nobody's casting over you. You got some people watching the sunrise, you know, having their coffee, and you got, you know, 50 tarpon to yourself. It's like, not like this place, forget about it. You'd have hooks all over you if that was the case.
How about the rod and reel?
The rod, the major thing with the rod, can you just do me a favor, just hold that jig without getting hooked. All right, I'm gonna pull the rod. The most important thing with the rod is the bend has to start here, all right? Okay. Most of the rods these days, they go straight, and you got a little tip on the top, extra fast, they call them, fast. What that does is, up here, the leverage is here to there, all right? That is it destroys my wrist. You know, I did tree work for 35 years. I had arms that were like big, and it would hurt my wrist, right? Once you drop it down to here, the leverage is a lot less, all right? And it also allows you to load that rod and get that snap off. It holds fish a lot better too. You know, it's just once you get a fish hooked and that rod is bent, it's constantly holding pressure on that hook, and you lose very few of them. I mean, we'll lose fish on rocks, so you know, it depends on where I am out there. Some areas have small rocks, I really don't have to worry about it, but there are other areas that have big rocks, and I know I got to run up on them. And as long as I'm vertical, they can't really, you know, get me off. I feel them, and I'll tell you, and I tell my customers, oh, he's rubbing on a rock. In fact, I had a guy at the last seminar, he was on my boat, and I was telling him this. He's like, I was there when you took that picture. And I said, oh, he's rubbing a rock. I brought it in, he rubbed the epoxy off, the paint off, and a bunch of the lead off by going up to the rock and rubbing this on the rock. And it's on the Instagram, you can see it. You know, they're not dumb, and it's only the big fish that do that. So you got, if I wasn't up on top of him and he's in a rock like that, it's gonna hit part of that rock and break off. So, you know, that's the only thing that you really have to do different than if you were in a boat with a heavier tackle. And it's really not that bad just to get up on top of them to keep from breaking off. You know, you let them run and you run up on them and you got them. And like I said, most of the fish we catch that are 40 pounds, probably less than 5 minutes we got them in. You know, beat. I got her on video, she caught one that was over 50, probably less than that. I had a fish that was measured out to be about 75, probably same thing, 5-6 minutes, you know, came right in. I expected a better fight, but I'm not going to argue, you know, I got him. And then, you know what, sometimes you get a 30-pounder that takes 8 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, it's just, but for the most part, you get them in quick and you get them in healthy.
What breed rod is
this is a rod, the problem you have is you can't really get a 6-foot blank that's perfect. So what we have to do is get like a 7.5-foot rod, find the right bend, and cut it to where we got that right bend, you know, where it's not too heavy. This is a new rod. It's from a company that makes rods for other companies. So I just tried this one out. I like it a lot. I'm gonna give it a little bit more and see if it works and holds up. Then I'm gonna start using these. I was using a Lamiglass Triflex. but I just sold my last 5 today, so I can't get that blank anymore. I got a couple mud hole ones that work pretty good, but I just like, the triflex was really good, I like this one a lot.
So you just making, having somebody make the blanks and stuff, it's not a set, store rod?
What's that?
You can buy a store
You can buy a store rod. There are some you can buy a store rod. It's a matter of whether they're gonna hold up, but you can. 5 Star had one that it didn't last me long, but it had them. Triumph has one, the TS601 MF. That one, it's a good entry level rod. It's like 110 bucks. Is it gonna last you forever? No, but it'll get you going. And then that's all you gotta do is once you get going and you start doing this, you're not gonna want to stop. Doug Brodsky from Blue Frogs Bucktail. He buys all his bucktails from me. He sells bucktails. And he buys all his bucktails from me. You go and ask him. It's the only thing he wants to do. Snap it. It's just that effective.
What's your favorite bucktail?
The band show me. But this one right here. It just.
Who makes those?
I make them. It's the only way you're gonna get them. My buddy, the great Fred Galafaro told me, he goes, I don't know why you make all the other patterns. It's all you need. I was like,
What shape is it?
this is a 5/8. I make them, once you get above 1 ounce, it kind of loses, it's hard to do the effective snap to get that much weight going that quick. You can do it, but if you do it for any length of time, you're gonna get destroyed. So, and also with the bucktails, I find that the lightest bucktail that you can use and effectively feel bottom and fish effectively, do it, for the most part. I mean, there are obviously exceptions, but I always, as soon as that tide starts slowing down, and I can use something lighter, I'll switch to something lighter and kill the fish, and not be lazy. I had a charter last year, and I've noticed everybody, we caught a bunch of fish, and then it was starting to slow down, it was like a little lull, and the guy's like right next to me, and I was like, and every once in a while, you gotta give it a hard, I snap, bang, it was like 45 pounds, just like on cue. And then I had a brother out with a bunch of guys, and the same thing, and the one guy's like, he's a fisherman, he goes to Belize. He's like, Capt, I can't get a fish. I'm like, you snapping it right? I come over, I grab his rod, I was like, look, go down, feel bottom, and snap. And I snap hard, rod goes over, I hand him the rod. And he starts cursing, he's like, I don't fucking believe this, you got a camera or some shit, and he's flipping out on me, It's just, you gotta get the technique and get that quick snap off. And then, like I said, as far as the bucktails, no pork rind, no paddle tails, everything straight. These, the reason I mastered this, is because I had these bucktails before I started snap jigging. What happened was, back in the late 80s, mid-80s, I think it was 86, I was on Shinnecock East, and the bass were on tinker mackerel, little mackerel. And everybody's got the smiling bill with the red collar. I think bass know not to hit them now because, I don't know, that red collar is like a red flag. But anyway, you throw your bucktail out, and it's amongst all these gorgeous looking mackerel, and here's this gaudy, ugly white thing going through them. Of course nobody's gonna get hit. So I'm like, I'm gonna go home, I had this big idea, I fly fished. I'm gonna make a bucktail that looks like a tinker mackerel. And I did, the next day I went back. I didn't crush them, but at least I had 4 or 5 fish and nobody had any. And that's how I started. I made it with the feathers. I made it to imitate a mackerel. And then that year I was catching really well. But it really showed us how well they worked when, that was back, I don't know if anybody ever fished Northport Power Plant in the winter. But you go there and the fish were like stacked. I mean, I wish that place was open. But they would get lockjaw. It took a lot of pressure. And sometimes you'd go there, you'd see them, they wouldn't hit. We would always get them on this bucktail. Nobody else would, but we'd always get them on the bucktails. So then, from then on, that's all we did. Caught all sorts of fish with them. And then, we did a lot of fishing with the light line, 2 pound trilene mono, all right? And our rods are 4 foot. So we go out with the little marabou jigs all winter, have a blast. The amount of fishing that you have on the island that isn't being taken advantage of is incredible. You can go out, we had one week period, we had almost 20 species of fish in February, just throwing little jigs all across the island, catching all different things. But, just to get back to it, we had these little 4 foot rods that Stan Henschel up in Rocky Point Fishery Stop would make with me. And then I would break like one a month. He'd make them for $50 for me because he felt bad for me. Every month I'd break another one. And they were simple. They had a grip like this. You taped the reel on, a couple of guides, and it was great. But it was 4 foot, 4.5 foot. And you really had to snap it to get that jig to take off with the mono. So then when we started doing the salt water with the mono, we started doing that, and then we noticed, it started really hitting there. We'd get more fish. And then braid came along. And we did that with braid, and it was like, forget about it. It was like somebody turned the switch, and it all came together, and I was like, out fishing everybody. And then Freddie would be like, you gotta start, writing some articles and giving seminars. I'm like, no. He's like, what do you mean, no? I was like, I like going and out fishing everybody and having the advantage, and so I was a little selfish. But he convinced me, and we started giving the seminars and writing some articles, and it's taken off. I mean, I see people all over the place doing it. I went down to Florida, and the guy's like, you're the snap jigging guy. I'm like, what the hell is this guy from,
And you use that
Yeah. I was out with my girlfriend and Saul, right? We're going out of Matatuck. And we're just going out to get some fish for dinner. So it's around 4th of July. Go out of Matatuck. Saul has bait because he's a bait slimer, all right? I had gulp because I just want to get fluke. And she has a little, like, half-ounce bay anchovy. She crushed us. Crushed us. And she had not only fluke, she had a bunch of striped bass, porgies, sea bass, she had everything. The fluke, at times, the fluke, if you're on your, with how fluke look on the machine, you'll see them come up that inverted V. When you see that, they'll crush this. Drifting, yeah. Yeah, drifting and just snap jigging.
all the fishing you do with that is drifting.
No, you don't have to, because you can anchor up on a drop-off or something like that. I do it from the jetties. Like, if you went to Shinnecock Inlet,
Right.
July, 12 noon, threw a standard striped bass lure out, you're not going to get them. I'll go right next to you with this, I'm going to get them. Middle of the day,
Wow.
all the time. Slack tide, everybody gives up slack tide. I'll get them. You'll get them if you do this. It's that effective.
So now you sell those, the bucktails?
Yeah, the bucktails, if you hurry, because they're running out. The only show I do is here. I love, I've been here since there was like 10 tables in the hallway. And the way this, what he does for these kids, the amount of work that Bob puts into this it impresses me to no end. The amount of work he does for these guys.
Tell me the difference of striped bass, jigging, and fluke. Tell me the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little subtle distances, but the difference between the fluking and sometimes you get them. I mean, fluking is going downhill, all right? There's no doubt. I used to get 1 or 2 really good doormats a week going for stripers. Just snap jigging for stripers, we get them. And that's gone way down. There's little, you could keep it a little closer, like fluke and striped bass. Sometimes you give it a snap, get near the bottom, just wait an extra second or 2. And then, you'll, you have a question?
Gentleman in here was asking if you have a book or a video on your technique.
The video's on YouTube, John Paduano Snap Jigging. It's a good video.
Does it tell you the tackle that you use?
It tells tackle, it tells tackle what to look for. Obviously, you want a good drag. I tell everybody. Now, I'm friends with Craig from Van Stall, but if you put me on an island with 1 rod, it'd be this rod, and 1 reel, it'd be a Penn Spinfisher 6 or the Authority. It just holds up. Listen, I like the VS50, but the drag. I am really bad with my tackle. I'll be the first to admit it. I come back, I'll throw it in the corner and hope the rain washes it off. I have rods reels from 5 years ago that still go with the Penn Spinfisher 6s. The drag is still smooth, all right? The Van Stall, I got to bring it in every couple months to get the drags redone. I mean, who's got time for that? It's not like you can't realize. I guess you could do it yourself, but why not just copy Penn? You know what I mean? The drag is great. Well, this reel is expensive. This reel is really sweet. It just
What size is that?
what's that?
What size is that?
2,500. I just want to get into something else before we get further. And it's called deep snapping, which a lot of the local experts now call snap jigging. What it is basically when we get below deeper than like 40, 50 feet, and people have a hard time feeling bottom, is a more vertical approach. All right, when you're shallower than 50 feet, and I've seen it a lot. I can come here and give you instances. I'll give you a quick one. I fished around Shelter Island, used to, until they opened up the commercial early and it destroyed it. And there was one place where I'd drift and I'd cast inshore, but I always went over these 3 rocks. And the last rock was a big rock. And I'd always look at my machine as I went over it as I was casting. And I had a little tiny Carolina skiff, 16 feet, all right? For every small little thing, I'm up 40-something feet above this rock on the bottom. And I'd go over the rock, no running, just drifting quiet, and there'd be 3 or 4 fish behind the rock. Go down, run all the way out, around, come by, do another pass, there'll be 1 fish there. Go out, around, no fish. Now, I'm not even targeting them. I'm not dropping things down to them. Just my boat going over every time forces them out. The shoreline, same area. There's a shoreline, it's a shallow flat along the beach. And early in the spring, every time I go there, I'm throwing poppers, I'm catching 20, 30, 40-pound fish. So I went there with my buddy Fred, and we're casting the poppers, and he goes, I guess they're not here. I was like, oh yeah? I was like, get on the front of the boat. Gets on the front of the boat, go into 3 feet of water, motor through slow. They're all over the place. But just from me throwing poppers on that beach, they learned not to hit them anymore. You know, I used to fish bridges. You know, my friend Pete here fishes bridges. When we went out west, and I went to the Meadowbrook Bridge, and me and my friend Bobby would get out and walk up to the bridge. If there was 1 boat on the whole bridge, we'd turn around and walk away. Because that 1 boat would affect the fishing on the whole bridge. You know? There was this, were you with me that one time? We were on the Ponquag. We're killing the fish, and then Carl Bridge came with his boat. We're on the Ponquag Bridge, all right? North side, fish everywhere. We're catching fish. This guy, Carl Britz, he's a little bit of a psycho, but he comes up, he does everything right in his little tin boat, all right? Comes all the way up, puts the anchor in nice and quiet, drifts back above the, this is at night. You know, he's in front of the line. All the fish move from the north side of the bridge to the south side of the bridge. So we go down the south side of the bridge, we're catching fish. Picks up, does the same thing on the south side of the bridge, they all move to the north side of the bridge. Fish are smart, you know, they're not smart like us, but they associate. And they associate boats with bad things. And, you know, they move. So, you know, it's, when you're in shallow 40 feet, I believe casting away helps a lot. Once you're above 40 feet, deeper than 40 feet, first of all, for most people, it's going to be hard to feel the bottom on the light tackle. Second of all, this is effective and works. You know, maybe not as good as the Bucktails. I mean, I can tell you stories where we're going over an area that's loaded with sea bass, and we're throwing these, and we're crushing big sea bass. I mean big sea bass. You know, there are times we don't keep anything under 21 inches. And, you know, I'll take a bucktail out of nowhere, throw it out, and I'll grab a bass. Even though we just went by 10 times with this, the bass still want the bucktails. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to put this on, and we're going to drop down. Now, this is really good for a lot of people, because no matter where you are, if you're here, you go to a wreck off Cranes. If you're on Fire Island, you go into the reef. If you're Shinnecock, you go into the reef or small wrecks. So it's a more vertical thing, you're going to drift over the structure. So normally what goes is, on my charter, we'll go up, we'll get to the start of the drift, and I'll say 80 feet. So what you do is you drop it, you lift up, you grab the line, you follow it down, that's 10. Let go of the line, lift up, that's 20. You do that 7 times. Now on the 8th time, pay attention, watch that line. You feel it hit the bottom, you snap up off the bottom, you hold it a second, drop down, snap up, and that's all there is to it. And if you do that with this, with 10-pound test, you're going to crush the sea bass. We get cod, we get big blackfish. I mean, nobody believes we get blackfish. I mean, we get tons of blackfish, nice ones, all summer long. No, you can't keep them, but they're still a blast to catch. You know, I got a 12-pound blackfish on Bay Anchovy Bucktail. It's a blast. The cod, you know, everybody thinks cod like, what are they, a sack of potatoes? You got a 10-pound cod on this outfit, they're pulling the drag, you're having a blast. 3-pound porgies, they're a blast. I'll be the first, you know, they're a blast. So, you know, That's basically what that is. Now, yeah, the current or the wind is gonna pull you one way. It's gonna start pulling it out one way or the other. So what you do is at the end of the drift, if you see your lines out like that far, the beginning of the next drift, what you're gonna do is you're gonna throw it the opposite way. That allows it to bounce right past you, and you keep more, it's a lot easier, because eventually it's gonna go out too far for you to even feel bottom effectively. You got to reel it in. If you cast the other way, and then let that go, it's gonna allow you to feel the bottom and be in the zone a lot further. And it's effective on everything. You can get everything like that. So, any questions on any of that?
In regards to this full snapping technique at night, what's your take on night?
You know what? I spent so many years fishing night, and I did tree work. Twice I fell asleep. I was a tree climber. You know, waiting for guys to clean up. Twice I fell asleep. I mean, I don't fish night anymore. I can't even stay awake past the first inning in a Yankees game. So, you know, I'm sure it would work. I do fish the big rod with a kind of like a snap jigging for a long time. You've seen me do that, right? I throw it out with the big 11-footer, and it's the same thing. Snap up, take it down, but I'm using bigger, heavy stuff. I mean, I try a thing called a tarantula. Forget about it. It's not even fair for the fish. But it's basically the same technique, but you don't get that quick snap, but it works. All right?
Is it important to follow it down?
It's extremely important to follow it down. Because if you don't follow it down, you cast out, and you just hold the rod, it's going to come on an angle, and it's going to glance more. If you lower it, it's going to be more vertical, and you'll feel it 100 times, honestly, 100 times better. If I hold it just like that, forget about it. Another thing you got to realize too is if you're drifting fast, once that hits the bottom, if you're not in tune, and it hits the bottom and it grabs a little, even though it's dropping at maybe 4 miles an hour and you're drifting at 2.5, you're not going to really see that 1.5 mile difference in the line coming off. You know what I mean? So if you're not staying in tune and dropping it and feeling that little bit of difference, you're going to be on the bottom and you're going to be like, why are my lines all the way out there? And it's going to be because you lost it. All right?
What about skinny water?
Skinny water?
8 feet.
All right. It depends. All right. Now, if you're surf fishing, if you're going to Smith Point and you got to hit that outer bar, you need the 3/4. You're going to have to bring it in quicker. But the thing is, I mean, it happens. You could, you could go to the beach and everybody's casting their big 11-foot rods with their Tina teasers, trying to catch some little fish. And we go down there with something like this, and I'll go to the edge of the water. The beach is like this. I'll cast alongside the water like this, 10 feet off the beach. There's a ton of fish in the surf line that these guys aren't targeting. And even if they are, they're getting one little 5-foot section as it comes out of the water. Meanwhile, I'm getting 200 foot this side and 200 foot this side in the zone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes,
Yeah.
So, and shallow water, just lighten it up. Like I make, bucktails are great because everybody just thinks the bucktail's a bucktail, but if I'm in Florida and I'm fishing for tarpon and stuff, I'm going to use a shorter, stouter bucktail. Up here, I'm going to use a longer, thinner bucktail. You can make bucktails. I make bucktails for my friend Lou for red fishing, and I make them so they land quietly in shallow water, or a little bit more water resistant and bright. You can make them for whatever you need. Bucktails are very versatile and like that. I think it's time for me to go. But what time we got? Oh yeah. All right, guys.